Mercedes' depressing start of the 2024 season is dubbed to have an interesting turn in Miami, where the team will introduce an array of upgrades that would aim to lift the car's performance and find more pace from the tricky Challenger they've built for the 2025 season. But with so many flaws on the car, as well as the challenge to tackle down a new concept that they know so little about, Russell's suggestions might be the ones that Mercedes would be more than happy to accept in their latest upgrade package. With this in mind, could Hamilton be even further massacred by the performance of the W15, given his struggles with the previous two versions of the car? And what parts is Mercedes going to change in search for more pace in Miami? The upgrade package that Mercedes prepared for Miami are the ones that were initially scheduled for Imola. However, the Silver Arrows are sick and tired of waiting for more races and going into a weekend without knowing how their car will act, as Wolff admitted that it is no secret experiments on the car will be run on every race throughout the 2024 season. Therefore, there is no need to wait for more races to see where the team stands with the W15, especially after the massive fluctuations in performance from one session to another, given the setup changes on Hamilton's car. Some of the bigger parts that will undergo changes are the side pods, which will be remodeled, or in other words, we're going to see even greater undercut in the lateral area to energize the flow that passes there. Apart from the side pods, it's evident that the floor of the car is not in the best position as well, which is why the W15 will now have a floor which will see a lot of work on the edges of it to provide better air sealing. The primary issue that Mercedes has battled is the lack of downforce, which has been the result of them trying to tackle the first issue in the new regulations, an excessive amount of downforce preventing the car from operating in the optimal window. This is why Mercedes might revert back to its basics and finally try to develop what they thought was misery in the 2022 and 23 season, as Russell called out the team to take a more aggressive approach towards this direction. When talking about the Miami upgrades, Wolff went on to say, "I think the car is difficult to set up and difficult to drive, and that is why you have these oscillations in performances, in my opinion. I think where the car is and where Lewis's car was, it was certainly far away from the optimum and it is driving on a knife edge. So what is it? This is where we are. For Miami, we are bringing new bits and it will be interesting to see how they are going to perform on the car." Furthermore, Wolff went on to point out that the upgrades should be a step in a good direction because they're going to aim at one very important issue the car has been having for the past couple of months, and that is the failure to correlate the results from the simulator with the on-track data. Of course, the aero map of the car is one of the greatest flaws that the W15 has presented itself with, and that could very well come from the fact that the team changed a lot of designs, concepts, and on top of that, they do not have a stable crew to work on, with changes to the design team being made every month or so. This might be one of the reasons why Hamilton made a cheeky comment about not being a car designer and wishing he was one, so that he could fix the issues the car has. And judging by his unusual positivity after exiting in Q1, you could safely assume that the 7-time world champion is slowly but surely giving up on the project and is now starting to focus on his future with Ferrari. That mission, however, will be further eased after Russell's latest comments, who went on to call the team to bring themselves back in time and work with something they know, rather than experiment a lot and try to find a miraculous amount of performance in a matter of months. Judging by his comments, you could assume that Mercedes would be looking towards prioritizing Russell's needs, and the first upgrade in Miami could very well be the first step towards that direction, as the young Brit went on to say, "We have had two different setups in China, both of which produce very similar lap times and performance. So the work needs to be back at the factory and ultimately in F1. The more downforce you have, the faster you'll go. The setup is the cherry on the cake. I think there is no silver bullet in finding performance. We just need to keep on adding it and focus on the basics, which is in the wind tunnel and in the CFD, just adding downforce. Maybe sometimes it's as simple as that. I think we have understood enough so far that we just need to add downforce. We have changed philosophies and we have changed concepts quite a few times now over the last 2 years." It is not an easy path that Mercedes have embarked on, because after changing so much about the car and the concepts, they've spent so much time and resources now on something that could very well mean it's not going to work for the foreseeable future. Therefore, you could understand the anger from Hamilton and the departure in Ferrari, but on the other hand, it doesn't mean that Mercedes can't turn things around this year or next. Even their main hope lies in 2026, when the cars will produce 40% less downforce and the performance of the team will be determined by the power unit as well as the battery power of the car. Yet to say that Mercedes can gain a lot of performance without fixing the primary issue with the correlation data is definitely a far-fetched scenario, because whenever they're going to test these upgrades in the simulator, they would come out with a result that they have no idea whether or not it will actually translate onto the track. Or, to put things into perspective, they would be much more convinced that it won't translate on the track, judging by the proximate history, which is why they are not realistically in a good chance to find a massive chunk of performance like McLaren did throughout the course of the 2023 season. Although it's worth mentioning that if there is a team capable of pulling this off in 2024, it most likely is Mercedes. When talking about the expectations from Miami furthermore, Wolff went on to say, "We are lacking pace and we have got to dig deep. We have got something coming for Miami that looks like a good step. Let's see where that brings us out. It is not an okay car. We can see what the mistakes are on the car. We wanted to go a bit more aggressive to see if it was something so different we needed to do on that car, and you can see Lewis today took it on him. That was maybe a step too far." The race car was not fast. You heard him saying the car doesn't turn, and this is what we can see in the data. It wasn't the right thing to do. Again, we are returning back to the core problem of Mercedes, which is the correlation between the simulator and the on-track data. An engineer from the aerodynamic department has also opened up about this issue and how it prevents the car from reaching its optimal performing window due to the limitations it applies on the upgrades functionality on the car. As he went on to say, "It has been 2.5 years since the car on the track does not match our simulations. We moved the parameters countless times, and most of the time they did not match the car walking on the track. Therefore, almost all of us enter the see to believe mode when it comes to more upgrades like the one we are doing now." There is definitely a lot to be worked on, and it seems like Mercedes are eager to exploit as much potential as they can from the new concept. But judging by the fact that majority of these changes were made based on Hamilton's comments, and he is now departing the team, it could very well mean that Mercedes will move towards its old basics and try to add as much downforce as possible and then deal with the limitations afterwards. While this might sound like a desperate thing to do, it's definitely the best solution that Mercedes have right now, after they are currently in their worst start of a season since 2012, and fighting for P6 is not what they had in mind when they entered the 2024 season from Bahrain onwards. With all this in mind, do you think that Mercedes has what it takes to turn their fortunes around in Miami? And more importantly, do you think there is a chance for them to add more performance to their current car? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if interested, click on the video appearing on your screen right now.